Viewer discretion is advised. Your fave will be criticized.
That's Shan.
That's Chris.
And this is CCTV, the nonstop pop show.
And today we're heading to Pop 101 class and learning about the iconic 90s British girl group, Eternal.
Looking for an awesome global pop music podcast? Well, look no further because Shan and I have the inside scoop with extensive experience performing on stage and working at record labels. You can join us on Patreon at patreon.com/cctvpops and become a part of our amazing crew, which includes Lisette, Lily, Emily, Kevin, and Juliet. And please click that subscribe or follow button and we can explore the world of pop music together.
And one of the perks of being a CCTV crew member as a producer is helping us decide episode topics. So as requested by our crew member, Kevin, today we are heading back to Pop 101 class to discuss the iconic British R&B girl group Eternal, one of the most influential girl groups of the 1990s.
Before we start the class, though, do you like Eternal?
You know, I didn't know I did until I realized who they were. I was like, oh, that's who they are. Because I know Stay.
Yeah.
Stay. Again, it got lumped in VH1 Soul. When VH1 Soul used to play all the old girl groups and stuff like that, I used to watch it. That song probably came on, I didn't even realize it. But they sound a lot like Jade. Don't walk away, boy. Like even their harmonies, just the stacks sound very much like that. Like a lot of 90s girl groups. But yeah, I enjoy them for sure. I didn't know exactly who they were. I didn't even know they had a white girl in the group. But I was too young to even know, first of all. And then second of all, by the time they swung around in my mental frame, I still didn't peep until we did this episode. I was like, oh my God, that's right. The white girl in the group and the, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're both a little young, I think, for Eternal. Yeah, I was also barely born when they first came out. So I didn't really know about them really either. I knew the name. Like I knew that they were a very influential group in their time for a lot of my favorite artists, including the Spice Girls. They always name them. It's kind of one of their big influences. So yeah, I had heard a few of the hits like Powerful Woman and a few of those, but I really hadn't taken the time to do the deep dive. So thank you, Kevin, for suggesting this because I actually really enjoyed going through their videos. And we did it together as well. We went through some of their stuff and that we had a lot of fun. So yeah, before we get started, we have created playlists for you to follow along on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music if you want to listen to the full tracks or watch the music videos. And the links are in the description. So let's do this. Class is in session.
In the beginning, chapter 1. Inspired by the success of American girl group In Vogue, Dennis Inglesby, a producer and manager, started scouting the British club scene for stars in 1992, where he found sisters Esther and Vernie Bennett, and also Louise Nerding. After working a bit as a trio, Louise introduced her friend Kéllé Bryan, and Eternal was born. Fun fact, Louise and Kéllé actually met at the Italia Conti Performing Arts School, which was also attended by other famous British pop group members, including Lisa from Steps, Joe from S Club 7, and Lee Ryan from Blue. Eternal signed to EMI Records in 1993 and quickly released their first single, a cover of Glenn Jones's 1990 hit, Stay.
Stay received critical acclaim and achieved success globally, hitting every chart in the world, including number 3 in Australia, number 4 in the UK, and number 19 on the US Billboard Hot 100. The song also went on to be nominated as well in a lot of awards. So yeah, what do you think of Stay?
Stay home. You know, I could totally hear In Vogue on this. I mean, Esther is the only one holding it down for leads, but the harmonies are good. And they actually have an a cappella version. Like someone uploaded it from GMTV and they sounded really good. And you can hear like it's actually the girls. It's not just a bunch of Esthers. And then the girls kind of like lip sync Milli Vanilli-ing it, which is nice. I love the harmonies in the I don't know, like the I'm not gonna sing it, but only one person can do 4/4 harmony. But yeah, like the I don't knows and like it's just really nice and smooth. For as powerful as Esther was singing, everyone else sounds really smooth and it's really cool. It has a nice groove to it. Again, it sounds like Jade. It sounds like In Vogue. It just feels really nice and sounds American, right? Which is really important.
Yes.
It doesn't sound like UK pop trying to become it just y'all know the difference, and if you don't, listen closely.
Mhm.
But I like it. It fits right in with those girl groups, like I said. How did you hear this song? Have you heard this song before we started talking about Eternal?
Definitely. Definitely. I don't know if I
Okay.
knew it was them, you know? But yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like it's just one of those that would just kind of be played on rotation, kind of, you know, even though
Yes.
we were, again, like, it would have been later on in the 90s for
Mhm.
sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely this one's up there. It's a classic example of that early 90s sound, that kind of R&B pop with some New Jack Swing in there. Like, it's so, so good.
Yeah.
And this whole sound is really making a comeback now in
Oh
current
my
pop
God.
music. So if you just updated the
Yes.
production a little bit, this could probably work again, honestly. But yeah, the chorus is so simple, obviously with the stick. But super, super catchy. And yeah, like you mentioned, the harmonies
Yeah.
sound so good. And Esther, wow, her voice,
Mhm.
it is such a beautiful tone. It's really got a nice
Yeah.
husk to it. There's a thickness to it. And she makes it look so easy. When you watch her
Oh my God.
perform, those ad libs, she's still doing those, you know, the jumping and all that, and she's belting her butt off.
Uh-huh.
So it's really,
Mhm.
really impressive. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed this one. This one has been added to a lot of my playlists.
He said playlists, plural.
Yes,
Go
plural.
off, Eternal.
Yes. All right. So with the release of their debut album, Always and Forever, in November 1993, the group was catapulted into success, especially in the UK, where it hit number 2 in the albums chart and became one of the biggest selling albums of 1994. The second single from the album was Save Our Love, which proved the group was not just a one-hit wonder.
Say it's not too late. I know the time enough. Help me, darling. We got to save our love. Save our love.
Yes. And honestly, this song is interesting because it definitely has a little bit of like a darker tone in the beginning, like the bell tolls and the drum machine, and all of a sudden it gets really bright. I've got to say, I love the way Esther goes spring. Instead of saying spring.
I have to sing it like that, though, with her, too. Spring. It's like low.
Spring. You know, I think it's a testament to like her training as well, too. Like, if I'm not mistaken, the two sisters are very much like church girls, you know? And then the other two were quote unquote secular. So it's a good balance. I think they were a good balance. Even looking at them in this video, like they're wearing the typical like tomboy outfit, of course, but in Vogue were wearing dresses. And Vogue was like, you know, giving you old Motown girlies, but with tetes and, you know, and hair flips and songs about premarital bliss, if you catch my drift, you know? This one is kind of just like we're in love, like let's just continue to hold on to it. But yeah, I mean, pop songs like this about loving and cherishing love, you don't get that much. Even in R&B, you don't get that much anymore, really. Like, especially with these kind of vocals, it's either like some "He broke up with me, he don't love me." This one's like, let's save our love.
That's a preview of one of Shannon's new songs, everyone. Joking.
But again, like this is a testament to the caliber of artists, especially with the video. It's literally just them on a fashion catwalk and LED screen. Legit, it's a fashion show. Someone was like, "We're done with it. Y'all want this?" They danced on it, and that's it. No 50-11 changes, just one set and performance. So again, they were on it. They were on it.
Yeah, I really like this one. I like how it does start very dramatic. Save our love, like the plea of it. But then you get to the verses and she's just very sweet and nostalgic, Esther, like with the way she does it. And then the chorus is then very hopeful. And then you get those like signature like 90s like bells in the back as well. Like the whole dynamic of the song is really fun. I have to give a shout out to Vernie, who does a lot of the high harmonies on the verses. I mean, obviously being a sisters with Esther helps with the blend already, but they have a really great dynamic and it just sounds really, really good. And yeah, the dancing, like I mentioned, it is athletic, man. Like there's so much jumping. It's all jumping.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, it's a lot. Oh my God, it's giving Fly Girl for sure. It's giving Fly Girl. And speaking of Fly Girl, these girls did nothing but fly to the top of the charts because the group released 4 more successful singles from the album. Just a Step from Heaven, which I love. So Good, Oh Baby I, and Crazy, which all hit the top 20 in the UK, with Oh Baby hitting the top 5 and giving the group their longest chart run so far.
Don't let go, 'cause it's just a step forward.
we're not gonna really get too much into just stuff from heaven, but honey, then we'll talk about dancing. The video they start with a tour. They do the little tour jump, and I'm like, what is going on? Why is all these pirouettes and stuff? But with Oh Baby I, they kind of stripped it down. They stripped it. Well, they didn't strip, but they, the video wasn't so like much dancing.
Yeah, I mean, all the singles up to that point were pretty upbeat, so it made sense to then do a ballad. And I have to say, I've been quite nostalgic about the '90s ballad. I think because I've been listening to a lot of Whitney because the movie just came out. Then then Celine Dion. I kind of had a moment with her too when her news came out, and the ballad was so important and almost charted better than the upbeat songs back then. So it's really interesting now, like ballads aren't really a thing, at least in the pop charts, So I miss the drama of it all a little bit. But yeah, the harmonies are really pretty in Oh Baby I, and the chorus is very sweet. It's just the right amount of cheesiness. Every 90s ballad is pretty cheesy usually, but this isn't too cringeworthy in my opinion. Vernie does also, again, get a little ad-libby moment here, which is nice. As you can tell, I'm not a huge fan when there isn't a lead vocal, when there is a lead vocalist, I mean, and the other three don't really get a chance to shine. But like you said, in these cases, you can actually hear all four of them within the harmonies. Like Kéllé and Louise's thinner tones do complement the thicker tones of the sisters very, very well, and their blend is really strong, just even from the beginning. From what I can tell, it's Kéllé that handles the lows. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I heard, I was like, sounding like.
And it's interesting because listening to her kind of solo stuff later on, like she gets much more warm when she sings in her lower tone. It's a little thin when she kind of sings higher. So just a smart choice, I guess, in terms of the blend.
Yeah, I'll get to the blend in a second, but honey, if you know a slow jam, you know a slow jam. Okay, it's 4 minutes long. It's about maybe like 2 BPM. Like the slow jam for the snails. Okay,
The snails.
Listen, the snails are back. The whole point of songs like this is love. Like to love someone, to be like, oh my gosh, this is like the baby making kind of like ballad. This isn't just like, oh baby, we're walking down the aisle. You could do that, but that's more Brian McKnight, blah blah blah. But again, when I think about my dad's CDs and what he had on the CDs, songs like this one. And I think, like you said, Kéllé is holding it down. I think this is one of my favorite vocal performances from the group because you can actually hear that these members have personalities in their vocals. You can hear the textures and tones, like you said. And the video is neutral. The backdrop is it's nice because you can actually see the members. Because like with Save Our Love and all the other videos, it's almost like girls standing in the back. Like,
I did watch a couple performances from all these songs. There are some where only Esther has a microphone. Like literally the other three are just dancing in the dark in the back. So yeah. Speaking of that though, the final single from the first album was Crazy, which did feature lead vocals from the other three members in addition to Esther. So that did prove that they are all competent singers. They all did get a moment here, which is nice. But it's interesting. I mean, Eternal fans, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen much discussion about any drama regarding who would sing lead and stuff. It doesn't seem like that was a big issue for them. Like maybe Esther's position was kind of just accepted in this particular case. I don't know. But it makes sense. Esther's amazing. Yeah.
Like if Esther was my girl group member, I'd be like, let her sing. Let her sing. Oh, I mean, but there was this one instant, though I do believe maybe it was V who actually rapped on one of the songs on the album. If You Want My Love, or If You Want Some Love Tonight. Not me forgetting the title of the song, but one of them actually raps, which is interesting because at the time, like, rap was in and they didn't rap. The constant promotion and touring that came with Eternal success was grueling, and the members were feeling the strain. In addition to being exhausted and longing for home, they were also experiencing increasing tensions amongst themselves. Kéllé revealed years later that from the very beginning, she did not feel welcomed by the sisters Esther and Vernie. And she revealed very early on in their career that she was just there for the money, a comment I don't really appreciate. But this revelation only added to this growing tension within the group. And additionally, as a girl group made up of 3 Black women and 1 white woman, Eternal faced obstacles in certain countries, including the US and South Africa, where their diverse makeup was seen as unusual or not accepted, which impacted their ability to promote their music and appear in magazines and on television shows.
Mm-hmm.
Ew, bananas.
Oof.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, again, we have to remember we're in the early 90s at this point. And I think racism has come a long way in the music industry since then, but does still have a long way to go. We had mentioned Eternal, actually, and this situation very briefly in our pop history episode about members leaving groups. But I think now we both have done a lot more deep research into this group, and there's a lot more layers to all of this than just like one white member and 3 Black people. You know? I mean, I find their dissection about how different countries reacted to the diversity is interesting. Like, you have a lot of these Commonwealth countries, like all the UK, all the previous like UK colonies, like in Asia and in Australia and everything, that seemed more accepting of it. Like, they were very big in Japan, like they were really big in Australia, and they didn't run into this issue. And they did really call out the US as the one that was like, I mean, I think they ran into this in their home country as well. But I think in the US, it was like, okay, Black radio is completely different from, white radio. Black magazines are completely separate from white magazines. And so that whole separation, I'm sure, really hindered their success, because I think after this album, they never really tried again in the US. I think they probably ran into just too many obstacles and it wasn't worth it.
Right.
And this whole situation does also make me think of multiracial groups later on as well. Like, you have Danity Kane, where a lot of those members have come out and said that there was a lot of tension there. Then you have Melody from Pussycat Dolls, where she was the only Black member, and she has mentioned having, problems with that as well. So, America definitely seems a bit behind a little bit, because then at the same time, you had the Sugar Babes launching in 2000, where this whole kind of United Colors of Benetton thing was like actually embraced and was seen as really cool, So it's just interesting kind of globally looking at the situation, how it affected their success in different countries.
Yeah. Oh my God. As a Black woman who makes pop music, I concur. But yeah, them being biracial is like really ridiculous. I mean, even now there's a group called Now United, and it literally has multiple countries of young teens dancing and singing together. But again, I mean, it's a sign of the times, but also, like you were saying, the media was really separated. Yeah. And even when, like I said, John B was coming out, people thought this dude was either like light skin like DeBarge or like a Latino guy, because they used to put him in sepia. Like, Babyface and them were like, listen, man, you could sing, but they can't have you out here, you being white. Even the way his haircut was like, it was like typical of brown and Black people. Right. So, I mean, like, even the media was like really separate. We had Source Magazine, we had like Vibe. Where does Louise fit in that? Right. So it was kind of difficult. I can see that being an issue. Even now, I don't even know if that kind of group would work now. Like, I know that sounds really weird, but people aren't ready for it. Like, we can't even get an Asian artist to freaking like be big unless they're backed by other Asian people, like 88 Rising, right? So America still has a little bit more to get around, and they're more accepting of it, as long as that person is, I hate to say, like, beautiful, or if like they're really talented. You can't just be like a subpar one Black member. You can't be like the subpar. I mean, Normani, a group of white women, passing light-skinned white women, whatever, and she's the only Black girl. She got the ridicule. You know what I'm saying? She got berated. So it's like, no matter what you do, it was never going to be right. It's never going to be perfect. So I'm not sure if we want to get better. We have Boys World as one Black girl, but predominantly Black with one non-Black member. Haven't seen it. And I think that's why they stood out, which was why I wish they would have made it here, because it would have been like, yo, the white girl's holding it down. Shoot. But maybe it would have changed their whole image and their makeup as a group, though. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Definitely. Yeah, well, so despite these obstacles that they were facing, Eternal was hitting new highs in their home country of the UK, getting 4 Brit nominations in 1994. However, before releasing their second album, member Louise decided to leave the group. She stated she was unhappy and wanted to pursue a solo career. And there have since been reports saying that Louise had actually signed a solo record deal with EMI 6 months prior to her officially leaving the group, which is interesting, and we can get into that a little bit. But she would actually eventually become a very successful solo pop star in her own right. We're not going to get into that in this episode because there's so much with the group, but let us know if you'd like us to do a little deep dive into Louise's solo career as well. And also, we have to give a shout out to Steve Anderson, who we've interviewed on this show before, because he has actually worked with her and is currently working with her actually on her solo material and on her tours as well. But yeah, so in addition to this whole situation, Kéllé has actually revealed that there was also this idea to actually have her leave with Louise to form a duo. But she ended up deciding to stay with Eternal, even though we know she actually wasn't very happy either. So that's interesting as well. Lots of layers. But yeah, what do you think of this whole situation? So Louise, who is the white member, or was the white member, she did decide to leave.
What may have happened in the US, like the whole sexing it up thing, like I said, En Vogue was not. En Vogue was, they were out here, they were looking real hot. You know what I'm saying? Even TLC got a little bit sexier. It was just sexy, right? V and Esther weren't about that, right? And whatever the talks were, whatever the conversation was as they were forming the group and like developing and performing, it wasn't sexy. I mean, even there are some interviews where people say, oh, don't you think you're a little too pure? Like, people want their pop stars to be a little bit more raunchy. Like, you're giving like, Bible-toting Britney Spears before Rolling Stone cover. Why are you doing this? And it's tough because Esther and V are church girls. They are, they're gospel. And then Kéllé and Louise brought the quote unquote secularness, or like they were stage school girls. They weren't like going to church. I'm not trying to be funny, but it's true. And the group was giving the tomboy look with the stylistic variations, but you could totally see the stylistic choices, like Louise wearing the skirt in Heaven. I'll just call it Heaven real quick. You could see who's wearing the shorts, who's wearing the skirt. Even when she went solo, it was more like, I'm bearing my soul. And then one of her songs are called Naked. I mean, it is what it is. There's nothing wrong with her being sexy, but I just think personality-wise, what she may have wanted to explore as an adult woman was not cohesive with what the lead vocalist and her sister wanted. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that's an interesting angle. I mean, we'll definitely get into that as the group kind of develops as well. So that's interesting for sure. I think going back to kind of just the racial implications of everything, she got offered a solo deal by the record label. Kéllé had, Kéllé was clearly vocal about her not loving it either. She didn't get a solo deal. She only got an offer to be a duo with Louise, right? So then you get into this whole thing of like, did Louise get preferential treatment because she's white? Like she got a chance to go solo, and use Eternal just as a stepping stone. I don't know. There's a lot to this, right? There's a lot of layers to this. I'm not saying anything bad about Louise at all.
I know what you mean,
she wasn't happy, but it is interesting kind of just looking at all the different layers of this onion here.
Come on, onion.
But yeah, I mean, Louise has actually spoken very fondly of her time in Eternal since then, and she's actually covered a lot of their songs on her own as well, like through the years. I watched her, like she had a cover just on YouTube, I think that was filmed during the pandemic, of her covering Just a Step from Heaven, and she sounds really, really good. So, I mean, she didn't really get to show her chops either in the group. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense that she was like, I can do more than the oohs and ahs, So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the group and her both found bigger success after she left. So at the end of the day, maybe this just wasn't meant to be, right?
Right. Whatever works for each member, and I guess the personality and exploration and such. And with Louise's departure, the three members went back into the studio to work on their second album, Power of a Woman, released in October 1995 with the lead single of the same name.
Yes, so for the second album, the group worked with some new producers and explored a more traditional R&B sound compared to their first release. And with that new sound came a new image too, so we can get into kind of what you were talking about. But Power of a Woman did hit the top 10 in the UK and Australia, and the album went on to sell over 2 million copies worldwide. So what do you think of Power of a Woman and the new image and new sound?
Okay, so, So this song gave me like Mariah's emotions.
Yes.
Totally. I was like, it's not a bad thing. We'll give it to the UK production when I was coming up. They were really like kind of teetering that line of like inspired by, Yep. But I do like the subject matter of it. It gives very much I'm Every Woman. But yeah, this video is everything we love about the 90s. And we got the technique. Got some pirouettes in the video. Got some commercial dancing. We have handography. Oh my God, there's this one extra dancer who kept splitting her legs in the chorus in the end. They go, ah! She's like, ah! She's on the floor and it pisses me off because I'm like, how y'all go from, no, we're not going to be raunchy to this girl spread eagle, like in the video. The silky jammies. We love those from the 90s, right?
We did.
The front lit glamour shots, like everything was very much like pop 90s. And it's interesting, like I said, how sexier they got, but still were like covered up. So the song was more powerful as opposed to like, I love you. I'm like, I'm not begging you to stay. It's like, do you know what I have? Do you understand what's in front of you?
It was more revealing and more body forming for sure, but it wasn't like sensual, right? Like it was still just like, yeah. But yeah, it was more revealing though, for sure. And the hair got a lot bigger.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So they had actually mentioned on the big reunion years later that this single and album was kind of like them going from caterpillars to butterflies, which totally makes sense. Like it is a big change and the confidence level is up. It is interesting because they were wearing like the jerseys and like the baggy pants and stuff. And then you go to this where the PVC and the silk and all that is all up there. But yeah, this one's a really fun one. It, like you said, it fits right up there with all the female empowerment anthems that all the divas were making at the time. And I love in the video that all the dancers and the band are all female. That was cool.
Yeah. The second single from the album was I Am Blessed.
And I am blessed every time I look into my baby's eyes.
Another huge hit for the group that was even performed for the Pope at the Vatican in 1995. And I've got to say, can I tell you, the Pope liked R&B, UK R&B acts, I guess, because he asked Cleopatra to perform too. He said, them girls in the UK, I kind of can snap to it. I got a cassette in the,
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Unfortunately, though, I couldn't find the footage of them performing for the Pope. I don't know if it was filmed, but if anyone has it, though, let us know. Leave a comment with the link.
Please do.
But yeah, it is interesting. I mean, you've mentioned, right, that the two sisters are church girls, right? And so it makes sense. And even then, like in the 90s, gospel was a big influence in pop music as well.
God,
so it makes sense. This song isn't explicitly about God, but, it might as well be, right? And, so that's always interesting. But yeah, I will say this video is actually quite sexy, them kind of like writhing around on the rotating platform with each other. And I was kind of like, this doesn't, the microwave. But, this doesn't fully work with the song, though. It was kind of like, I don't know, didn't really make sense.
They should have been sitting.
Yeah, I feel like, it was a little odd. And yeah, the song is okay. I don't think it's as good as other ballads that I've heard from them or other ballads that were out at the time. It's pretty, but that's kind of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking about the video of them like spinning on the microwave dish. I wish they had just been sitting down, to sit down. With this song, it's just very like balladish in nature. And I do like the second verse into the second half of the song because it gets a lot more full. So it doesn't sound like complete gospel. It sounds like Christian music, like open my arms and my heart, Lord, that kind of, not like black gospel like this. So I think that's kind of like also it makes it super pop and not all the way gospel music. And not kind of deceptive as well. If you're just listening to it, you're like, oh, this has a good little ring to it. Oh, wait, it's about God. I can hear Whitney in those verses. The way she came in, I was like, is this the greatest love of all, honey? And then she goes, and I
yes, oh my God, yes.
And I said, interesting, that's a choice. But she can hit the notes. She can hit the notes. Totally. When I heard, I heard am, I was like, you better say am. Unless you want to get hit with that big fat copyright.
Yes, I totally heard that too. That's so funny. Oh man.
Yeah, E and V do come from the church, and it makes sense. But back in the day, a lot of R&B pop singers, and a lot of singers in general, they were doing some seriously bankable hours in the church. Like back in the day, they were singing at choir at school, choir at church. Their mama and their daddy was in part of the. It's just different. Especially a lot of black singers. Like they sang more gospel back in the day. Like it was the sign of the times and the vocal prowess, because a lot of pop singers now are heathens and don't go to church apparently. because no one's belting
Heathens.
like this. That's a terminology for those who don't, subscribe to the bio. So anyway, but yeah, it's true. It's just like the time that was being put in the church and singing to the Lord and, anointing voices like, well, that person, oh, she's touched, she's blessed, like that kind of thing. You don't hear that anymore. So it's again, super interesting to hear the difference in influence and everything, even compared to now, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And the group went on to release a few more singles from the album, including Good Thing and Secrets. And Who Are You was actually released exclusively in Japan, and that's a good one. So that should have been a worldwide release, honestly.
We got such a good band. Ain't nothing coming close to this high. Doesn't get any better in this life.
During this era, Eternal also got a huge opportunity in 1996 to record a version of Someday from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney animated film.
Someday, life will be fairer. Need will be rarer. And green will appear.
And for those of us in other parts of the world, other artists were chosen, including All For One in the US, Luis Miguel in Latin America, Solid for South Korea, and Alex Du in China. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. I gotta tell you something. I was too young for all of this, but I think this song is interesting. Like, I know Solid.
I thought you said that and not All For One.
I know, right? Listen, when you have multiple influences in your life, it can go from anywhere, right? So I don't know their version, but I know Solid as a group. Like, I know All For One, totally. But Solid was the one I was like, oh my God, it makes sense. Honestly, I feel like this song is just interesting to hear the different choices of like, for each country, like each regional person was like, yo, listen, get your best and bring them to the stew. Like, that's what it gave. It just gave, like,
I mean, the production was different, though. So I find that interesting because
Yes.
they could have easily just used the same track for All For One and Eternal and just been like, go for it.
That's my point, though. They were like, get each region, make your own, like, version. Appreciate that.
Yeah, well, first off, I find this whole soundtrack thing very interesting. Like, Disney loves to do this, right? They get random pop stars from every different territory to record pop versions of their songs that are in the movie. So I think it's cool.
Yeah.
I knew the All For One one. I actually love the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like, I kind of want to watch it again after doing this. But yeah, Esther, though, I have to say, she kills this. Like, I may actually prefer the Eternal version to the All For One one.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, the US missed out. Sorry, All For One.
Yeah.
Yeah, the music video, though, is so funny because it's so... Because, okay, so the All For One one is just them, like, on the street, and you just see, like, projections of, like, the movie and the clouds and stuff. It's all, like, very pretty and subtle. But no, for Eternal, though, they went full Disney Channel. They're wearing these crazy bright blue outfits, and then you have these people in the background dressed as, like, jesters and other people from the movie making, like, weird faces and doing tricks and stuff. So it's all a bit silly and doesn't really match the song. But it makes sense for Disney Channel, I guess.
You know what? That gets on my nerves. I'm like, how y'all go? I mean, they did feature a lot more footage from the movie. Like, All For One and even Solid, who used All For One's footage. By the way, I just want to throw that out there.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. Thunderclouds and stuff. They used it.
Love it.
Theirs were more somber and gray, but the Eternal video had more color. So I guess they were like blue. Blue and cleavage. Go off, sis. Like, I don't understand. But you know what? This is what happened. You're the biggest girl group in the UK at that point, or one of the biggest. You can do whatever the heck you want. And in 1997, Eternal would reach new heights in their career. They released their third album, Before the Rain, in March 1997 with the lead single, Don't You Love Me, a track about child abuse and featuring vocals from the London Community Gospel Choir, which hit number 3 in the UK singles charts.
Bullets flying all around his head. Don't you love me? Don't you love me no more?
I think I appreciate Don't You Love Me for the message more than the actual song. I think the hook, the "Do you love me? Do you love me?"
Yeah.
No, you know, like with the
With
you
the bop.
with the bop. You know, it's catchy, but like it's repeated so much, you know, in this song, and there's no real structure. It's just like Esther sing this line and they do that hook, and then it's just not much structured to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of like, where is this going? Which by the end, I think production wise, then you get the horns come in, the strings come in, you get this like bongo situation too, which is interesting. But then when the kids come in, like the children's choir comes in, that's when you can really feel it. Like that's when I think it gets really powerful with that hook. So it built really nicely, but I think it's just, the song is just like okay as a whole for me. It does add, I think it does add something different to the discography, like something a little darker. And I appreciate obviously giving light to the situation of child abuse, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think of the song?
I actually liked it, but like when I say I liked it, it doesn't mean I like know word for word what's happening. I'm now starting thinking, "Don't you love me?"
With the hip hits,
and the the hands and the leather jackets.
Yes.
I do like the horns and the wind instruments, as you mentioned. Some of the key choices, like some of the keyboard choices, they're a bit meh. Like it took the coolness out of the song for me a little bit. But I do, like you said, appreciate the message. Like 90 songs with a message, like this, it doesn't really happen anymore. And I feel like they aren't as special. Like we had Earth song back in the day, and this one, it just doesn't feel like that anymore. Like no one does anything like this really. But I do appreciate, like you said, what they were trying to do. And I think sonically, I don't know the words sonically, like you said. I think the drama of it all is what makes me go, oh, I like this song.
A few months later, in May of 1997, Eternal finally got their first UK #1 single with I Wanna Be the Only One, featuring American gospel singer BeBe Winans.
I wanna be the only one to hold you. Touch you from the heart. I wanna be the only one to soothe you. Erase all the hurt. I wanna be the only one to love you over again.
And this song was nominated for Best Single at the Brit Awards and achieved huge success all across Europe. So they went back to the gospel for this one. Yeah, what do you think of I Want to Be the Only One?
This song reminds me of rom-com soundtrack and weddings. It's quite bright. The video also looks like the What a Man video. Again, the In Vogue parallel is just getting a little bit like, okay, I get like it was the 90s, but it was just getting like, okay, I can see it now, They weren't riding on the ground like the girls were, or like swimming in bathtubs, but they were like communicating with the BeBe Winans crew, But yeah, back to the whole like the way it sounds. I feel like this kind of song is like what is a formula for like a hit, I guess. Like, it's sweet, it's about pure love. I would be interested in hearing a more R&B derived version and not so much like the choir, I found the love of my life delivery. It's not bad. They sound really good vocally. But again, because they're such powerful singers and they're singing about something like what kind of love that they found, it almost sounds a little bit too bright. Like I wanted to get, I don't know. It sounds a little bit like, hunky dory to me. I just don't know. Not my favorite. But I do enjoy this song, like much like the power of a woman. It has like a step up in like, not a modulation, like a step up where the vocals kind of bring it up a little bit more, come up a little bit, like half step, if I'm not mistaken. And the energy gets brought up a little bit more. But again, just sonically speaking, I feel like it could have been a little bit more soulful.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it's very joyful. It's a great kind of like sing-along song. It's very happy. And yeah, I could totally see it at like weddings and things like that. But I have to be honest, after hammering the Eternal discography over the past few weeks, like this is very far from being a favorite of mine among their singles. I don't know. Maybe this whole thing just isn't really for me. Maybe it's just a little too cheesy for me. But I just think they have, better within their discography, but great for them that did so well. I will say BeBe has a great voice and his dynamic with Esther is really, really good. I think, them singing the chorus together sounds really good. I mean, the other two kind of got, they're kind of in the back with the choir, unfortunately. We've been mentioning this whole gospel thing. Like, I'm curious if that will kind of come back along with the rest of the other 90s influences that kind of seem to be coming into culture now. We'll see.
This whole, charge your crystals on the windowsill generation, I don't think so.
That's fair.
No tea, no shade. I just wanted to crack a joke. But it's true. I'm not sure if it's going to make a comeback in that sense. But I think in the sense of spirituality being put into pop, I think it's instead of spirituality, people are taking intellectualizing their emotions, right? More psychology, where it's like, even with, Hold the Girl and Rina Sawayama, she's talking about her inner child as opposed to a higher power. So it is coming back in a way, but maybe not in the way, shoot, if someone decided to do that, Tori Kelly is a good example of how it could be done. If it's done like that, then I could not force on your throat, like the Bible, smack, like that.
But even
like
just
that
incorporating a gospel choir into a song.
Oh my
Because
God,
I mean,
you're
I
so
want to be the
right.
only one as a love song, but it obviously has a
Nick
gospel
Jonas.
feel to it.
Nick Jonas did it in Jealous. I put my music up and I puff of my.
Oh my God, that song, those lyrics though, it's like, why is a gospel choir singing about being jealous? Anyway.
Hey, listen, we're reaching. We're trying. I'm trying, y'all. I'm trying for pop. At the height of their success, Eternal revealed that they would be releasing a greatest hit compilation, and plans were canceled for additional singles from the Before the Rain album and a U.S. release in order to focus on the Best of compilation, which was released in October 1997. The lead single from the greatest hits was Angel of Mine, which would eventually become a huge hit for American singer Monica the following year.
Better than a dream, such a perfect love. And I'll do it till the end of time. Angel of mine.
I had no idea that wasn't Monica. Monica wasn't the first singer to have this song. This goes back to, obviously, in those times, and that was shown by Someday as well, like, music releases were so territorial,
Yes.
You'd have artists releasing the same song in various territories, and you wouldn't even know about it, right? Like, because you didn't have the exposure. We didn't have the internet like that. So very interesting. First, before we even talk about Angel of Mine, though, what a weird choice from the label or management or whoever to jump straight to a greatest hits album after they just hit number one for the first time, and they only released 2 singles, or if you include Someday, 3 singles from the third album. Like, that's very odd to me. Like, I wonder what the dynamics or choices were behind that. Like, I guess business-wise, greatest hits albums used to do very, very well. It'd be almost a guaranteed seller. So it's possible that they just wanted to take advantage of the fact that they were hitting new peaks in their career and they had enough singles to fill an album. Or were they already planning to fire Kéllé, as we'll get into shortly, where they were kind of like, we got to rush this along because this group is going to implode. So let's just go with the greatest hits album. You know what I mean? Anyway, very interesting situation. So if anyone knows anything more about that, let me know. But yes, Angel of Mine, Monica's version is very huge. Like, I think people now, at least in our generation, they all know this song. I don't know if it stood the test of time. I don't know if the kids now know that one.
No.
But I think even Kelly Clarkson, like, recently, she covered it on her show. Like, this song is very much in, like, pop music culture, I think. So hearing that wasn't the original and that Eternal was actually the original is very interesting. And I will have to say, I may actually prefer Eternal's version. I'm sorry, Monica. But
yeah, y'all can't see me. I gave Chris like a very perplexed look.
Yes, because I actually love the way Esther sings it, and pardon the pun, but it's actually more angelic than Monica's.
No, I will not
me.
pardon that pun.
To me.
I will not pardon that pun.
Like, the production is also just overall just a bit dreamier. And I think Monica's it's just more grounded. I think it's just in the way she sings, it's just in her vocal tone and just the way it's produced. Like, the whole, but yeah, I think as a concept, as a song, the Eternal one's really beautiful.
I agree with you in the sense of, like, her singing is a lot more breathier and more popified with the harmonies. I liked Monica's a little bit more, only because of the US kind of appeal to it. But yeah, I like that one. This one's nice. I think what kind of like takes me away is that it was. Hang on, before I get into my own thing, I noticed that a lot of fans like this song because it's very universal in nature. We're calling someone else an angel. Like, conceptually, it's more of like a gospel again. Or almost a tribute kind of song, because a lot of people I've seen kind of say R.I.P. to someone, or something that they really like touched their lives. So the song has a lot of emotional stake in that sense. But Monica's version is complimentary by calling this man her angel. And like, the song went from, like, I think lyrically in Eternal, it was gonna love you till the end of time, where Monica says, gonna love you, boy, you are so fine, angel of mine. So yeah, it made it a little bit more personal, like to your loved
Mm.
one, like to your lover or whatever, as opposed to your loved one, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, they're both good, but I grew up with Monica's version. But it'd be very, very curious to know what the fans or even people who don't know Eternal, like, what do you think? Because you have two Black artists, literally Black artists covering it in two completely different ways. So I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting. Definitely drop a comment or let us know in the podcast platform of your choice. You can leave a comment there too. We'll definitely read them. So speaking of hits and such, The Greatest Hits was a massive success and is one of the biggest selling girl group hits compilations in the UK. But despite the success, remember all the tension we mentioned between Kéllé and the other members? Well, that came to a head. And those never went away. Actually, they were building this whole time to the point where they were barely speaking off the stage, with Kéllé even recording her vocals for the last album separately. And in 1998, tensions hit a breaking point, and Kéllé received a fax informing her that she had been fired and was no longer in Eternal due to the breakdown in professional relations. The sisters had been told that she wanted to leave, but Kéllé didn't actually feel this way. But the communication had broken down so much at that point that they never even had a conversation to clear the air. And what is done, is done, you know?
Mhm.
The kind of just, it was finalized at that point. Could you imagine just, and you see
You're
the
fired.
letter? Right.
I mean, a fax. Like, you really can't get more 90s than a fax, I think. And it still amazes me sometimes that fax machines are
Yeah.
still used at all. Like, what?
No,
Anyway,
you're right. Oh my God.
I did watch a few of their performances from this era, and I have to say, they did a great job faking the chemistry, because there was still eye contact. They were still giggling with each other. Like, they were still touching each other. You know, they did a great job.
Yeah.
You know, we talk a lot about pop groups in general on this show, and this whole breakdown of communication tends to be it's always a similar reason for breakups, right? Or
Yeah.
members leaving.
Yeah.
And it's just really crazy to me that labels and management, they just didn't understand basic group dynamics back then. And they even encouraged the drama and the competition between the members. You know, you always hear people like, oh, like, they don't like you, they're a better singer than you. You know, like all this stuff. And they almost encourage this, like, I don't know, this weird tension, which is just bizarre. I will say, like, when I was at the record label, obviously this is much later, but, you know, I still worked with a lot of groups and heard about a lot of drama within groups. But now,
Yeah.
you know, people do kind of get on top of it and bring in mediators or group therapists and stuff to at least try and fix the situation. But, you know, clearly
Yeah.
that wasn't happening back then.
Oh, yeah. Heck no. I mean, I will never understand the whole, like, fostering an environment of hostility. I'll never get that. I've never been part of a girl group, even though I would love to be one. But I've been in dance teams, and I usually had to be the buffer and the mediator. But that doesn't mean, like, you know, you have to sit there and pick a side. But someone should have been there to hold counsel, regardless. So it's just like someone should have been like, "Yo, sit down, because y'all messing with our money." You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just when I think of like the facts you're fired, I think of Back to the Future when he got fired. But yeah, it's really crappy to get fired that way and kicked out of a group. Like, again, it hasn't happened to me, and I'm hoping that it never happens. Like, Chris will ever send me an email or like a Zoom.
The show's over. CCTV is done. Can you imagine?
And I would sit up there and be like, he kicked me out by an email, a Google invite. That'd be crazy, dude. Like, oh my God, it's so terrible. I mean,
Yeah, please don't do that to me either.
oh no, it's terrible. Like, I'm gone, bad. Like, you know, oh God, I feel so bad for her.
I know. I
what?
know. Yeah, so speaking of Kéllé, she did quickly kind of just take advantage of the situation, though, and she had plans for a solo career, and she did release one solo single called Higher Than Heaven, which was eventually covered by Australian girl group Bardot. So side note, if you haven't heard our interview with Bardot member Belinda Chappell, where we do discuss Higher Than Heaven and many of their other songs, definitely go check that out after this class is over, because that was a great conversation. But back to Kéllé. So after the release of that single, she was unfortunately diagnosed with lupus, and it took many years to manage the symptoms, and she had to cancel the release of her album. Years later, she did become an actress on popular British soap opera Hollyoaks, and she's since also been on TV shows and things like that. So she's managed to keep her career going, but she did have many years of suffering with lupus and the symptoms of it.
Poor girl. Oh, Well, Esther and Bernie did go on, and they asked singer TJ Arlette to join the group, but she left after a few days. Interesting. Okay, and not you laugh.
I mean, how do you join this like huge pop group and then leave after a couple days? I don't know. Whatever. I wonder what happened to TJ Arlette. Does anyone know? Let us know.
She probably heard the song that they released right after the one we're about to get into right now. In the fall of 1999, Esther and Bernie released the album Eternal as a duo with the single What You Gonna Do.
1, 2, what you gonna do? When he's looking. 3, 4, he's knocking your door. Ain't nowhere to run, you can hide no more.
Yeah. Honestly, at this point, the two sisters should have just become a new group. Like, just start fresh at this point. Like, I think using the Eternal name as a duo just really didn't work, and it was kind of doomed from the start a little bit. But yeah, the song is okay. It's interesting because, now is when we really know, the music of this time, because we're in the late 90s now, and the producers were on that kind of dark childy kind of sound, But at the same time, though, it did still sound like an Eternal song. I think maybe because Esther's voice is quite recognizable. And so kind of when she kind of leads it, it kind of already kind of gives it that kind of whole vibe that the group had the whole time anyway. I will say the video, they look really good. I thought the whole trick with the bungee cord with the way they were kind of coming forward and bouncing back and going down and bouncing back and stuff was really well done. But unfortunately, the song just isn't good enough.
I think I agree with you in terms of like sonically what they were doing, and also as a group name, they should have gone like by EV. I mean, maybe not because now it's like electric
and
vehicle.
Vogue.
But like, oh, you're so right. Okay. How about this one? EV-E, who would have been like E and V of Eternal. See, I'm good at branding. Like I could totally Eve. It looks like Eve. The Eve. Like
Sure.
Eve, like Adam and Eve, because God and stuff. Look at me. I'm with it. I'm ready with it, right? So I mean, speaking of God and whatnot, they talk about God in this song. And unfortunately, due to the way the soundscape was, no one was talking about it at this point. They were like, listen, we're trying to hook up, we're trying to kiss, we're trying to find the love of our lives and dance at a club. We're not thinking about God. And it's a little unfortunate in terms of like, because the song's not bad. It's just lyrically speaking, if you get to that second verse, you're like, oh, that's what the song's about? Okay. I mean, it just doesn't do anything for them, for a lot of people. And the song is not that different from what was out at the time, like you said. I think it would have been a cool gospel track. They could have gone for like a Mary Mary type of thing where like two sisters singing. Like there's so many sister groups that excel in gospel, and they would have killed it. Like out here, we had Kirk Franklin switching up gospel, making it more hip hop, making it more like fun and like really energetic in the sense of like contemporary music. They could have done something like that for sure. But lyrically and conceptually, the song was not going to survive in the soundscape for sure. All right, girls.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the group didn't have many opportunities to promote the project, and both the single and album had underwhelming success despite the critical acclaim, with the album hitting only number 87 in the UK albums chart. With the muted response from the public, EMI dropped Eternal after releasing a Spanish version of Free to Live in Spain. So, yeah. Well, from my understanding, this might have also been the fulfillment of the record contract as well. Like maybe it was like the number. So it's possible that the label already kind of stopped believing in them at this point. And it was like, just release an album as a duo and let's just get this contract over with. And like they didn't even put any marketing money into it. I could see that. But I will say the album actually isn't bad as a project at all. I will say there are better songs than the single. So that's an interesting choice. But yeah, I think, like I said, they did update the production to match kind of this late 90s vibe. But they kept, like you said, they kept a lot of these same kind of more kind of spiritual influences in the lyrics. Like, I think there was still that eternal kind of essence in there. So it is unfortunate that this album didn't get very much attention. But I would like to know from the fans, like just from this time, like what was the situation and how did people look at it when Kéllé left? Like, were they all on Kelly's side? So the support for the sisters was already not there. Well, I don't know. I'm just curious kind of what the situation was. Because like we said, the pop music scene was also just very saturated. So they may have just gotten lost in the shuffle as well.
Right. But you're right. I think that does play a part for sure. Yeah, that makes sense. This album was actually full of a lot of sensual songs and even has one called Pillow Talk. I mean, thinking about where they started, at this point, they probably were like, what, like their late 20s? It's only been like, what, 8 years? 8 years is a long time to be running in music, you know? So if they started around like early 20s, late 20s, maybe early 30s. So, I mean, it makes sense in terms of just growing up and, like, you know, falling in love and such. But again, it's just so interesting to see what kind of direction they took. And even so, this being a single, being it their like pop gospel kind of thing, was interesting. Like you said, doesn't stand out in terms of like songs. But it does still sound like Eternal. I mean, they didn't sacrifice the sound, even though they lost members. Like songs like Your Love Makes Me Weak is a nice one, and it really shows like, again, they were sitting there, just the two of them, layer after layer after stack of harmony, and I appreciate that. And yeah, speaking of their Free to Live song, they actually have a Spanish version called Libre para Vivir. Oh yeah, honey, they sound good in Spanish. I would have loved to hear Stay, any of them songs that they had on that album in Spanish. Spanish just makes things extra spicy. Ain't gonna lie to you, a little picante. But yeah, they sounded really good and their enunciation was really good, so I'm like really impressed. Well, after a few years of pursuing other endeavors in their personal and professional lives, with Esther recording a few tracks and writing for other artists, and Vernie pursuing a law degree, it was announced that Eternal would reunite in 2006 for a tour with other R&B artists, including Boyz II Men and En Vogue. However, nostalgia wasn't there at the time, and the tour was canceled due to poor ticket sales. Vernie was actually pregnant at that time, too, so only Esther and Kéllé would have appeared. Ooh, goodness. There isn't too much information about this time, but clearly they felt that they were on good enough terms to at least perform together again.
Or the paycheck was high enough.
Not you say that.
But yeah, so it finally, in 2013, the three members of Eternal, without Louise, of course, who was actually now known as Louise Redknapp, were announced to appear in Series 2 of ITV's The Big Reunion. And the group got to tell their story and clear the air about all the drama they had experienced during their career. This culminated in a few songs performed at the series finale, which was filmed at the Hammersmith Apollo in London. They finally got to perform again and actually clear the air. We did watch The Big Reunion together, so we could experience these conversations. So what did you think of The Big Reunion and the performances?
Boy, there's two sides to every story, no matter how flat you make a pancake. You know, my mama always says that. And it's true. You never know. Because it's interesting hearing how one side was like, well, she didn't really want to be in the group. I did. You know, like, it's just, and it's like, I mean, by the time they did speak to each other, everything seems to be remedied. So I do appreciate that there wasn't any kind of like, well, we're going to appear in two separate tour trucks and two vans. Because like, even with New Edition, when they got back together, that was a crap show too. And I was so disappointed in them. Like now they're good, which I appreciate because I think they're too old to fight each other. But boy, that first reunion back in the early 2000s, you could, what? They were rough together, okay? But yeah, I think it was really sweet that they got back together to actually do this. And they sounded really good. Esther was giving it.
I will say, yeah, it's great to see the three of them genuinely enjoy performing with each other. I think just watching all the performances, like the smiles were so genuine. Like when they would look out at the audience and yeah, they just seemed to genuinely be enjoying it, which is good. And yeah, of course the dancing is toned down a little bit because like we mentioned, it was very athletic back then. But you know, there's still some jumps in there and Esther's still doing it with all those ad-libs too. So props to her. And yeah, I think the few times we did get full kind of live vocals from them, because there was a lot of backing track use in this, and they did that, you know, throughout the career as well, which it makes sense. But the blend was there. Like it was really, really good. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I like that they managed to get BeBe to come out for I Want to Be the Only One again as well.
Oh yeah, BeBe, one thing BeBe gonna do is gonna come sing now. It's BeBe and Cece, their siblings. They can sing their little faces off. They good. Following the big reunion, the members of Eternal have continued their friendship. And as recently as March 2022, Kéllé has mentioned that there are always talks about a reunion and that she would be open to it. So the story of Eternal may not be over just yet. But for now, we are caught up to the present day, which for us is the beginning of 2023. And now let's give you all some of our discography highlights.
Yes, but before we give our own recommendations, we have to give another shout out to Kevin, our CCTV Patreon producer, who is a huge Eternal fan, and he wanted to highlight the song Treat Me Like a Lady from the fourth album, Eternal.
But out of all the lonely nights I spent without you, you treat me like anything. When you should treat me like a lady.
So he felt that the sisters were really underrated as a duo and that this album deserved to have more success.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I heard that song too. I like that one too. Okay, here's the thing. I like these two songs for two different reasons. So I'm going to pick my final one, but I want to let you guys know that I like this Love Is For Real from the Always and Forever album, and also If You Need Me Tonight. I think I'm going to pick If You Need Me Tonight.
If you need me tonight, if you need me tonight, if you need me tonight, I will be there.
It does feature that rap, and it's just so much fun. Her go ting ting-a-ling. I'm like, why? I love that. Like back in the day, rapping in like love songs and the girl group, it was all there. You can hear it now in K-pop, so I appreciate that. And it just reminded me of Left Eye and TLC, but not too much where I'm like, she sound like a little mouse, like Left Eye did. But I like that song. It's just really cool, and it balances that whole like, if you need me, I'll be there for you, but also like, don't play me for a fool now. Like I'm here for you, but like if you're gonna be playing games, I can be gone just as quickly. So I appreciate that.
Nice.
What about you?
Yes, I will choose Faith and Love from the Power of a Woman album. Look at us choosing stuff from all the different albums.
Let's all have faith in love. It's what we're dreaming of.
So this is the final track on that album, and I just think it's cool because it gives just something different to the others, to the singles and stuff. It's a mid-tempo bop, and the lyrics are still kind of cheesy and hopeful. But then the melody and production is kind of sensual. So it just kind of has a cool dynamic to the whole thing. And it just really stood out to me every time it came up when I was kind of shuffling through their discography.
Nice. That being said, it would appear that class is dismissed.
So what do you think of Eternal? Also, let us know which artists you'd like to hear us do a Pop 101 class about. You can comment below or message us at CCTV Pops on social media. You can also join us on Patreon and help us decide what to cover in future episodes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel. And if you're enjoying the show, please give us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, that's Shan.
That's Chris.
Signing off from CCTV, the nonstop pop show.